Hey, it's Jason with J. Allen Photography, and welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 10, double digits. We're never going back to single digits again, just like when we were kids, right? Episode 10, super excited, and I've had 9 episodes with one guest appearance, and what I've realized from that one guest appearance is it is so much easier to actually have a conversation than just to ramble on by myself. Definitely, I can talk to myself, but it's so much easier just to have a conversation. So that is why I brought in a photographer, a friend, and somebody else who I just kind of thought would be interesting for the channel. And she is a little bit nervous and apprehensive about it. Been trying to have conversations and get her at ease, but I think she's going to be just fine. This is Frances. And Frances and I met 4 years ago-ish.
Yeah.
2020. It was like COVID because COVID shut down the classroom.
I think it was right before.
Right before, that's right.
Right before, yeah.
Yeah, because I did a classroom instruction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was taking a photography course or class, and the instructor had asked if I could come in and teach lighting, which it's a whole other issue because I was so nervous about doing that, which I don't know if y'all knew that, but
No, we didn't.
super nervous about that because I'd never really taught anything. But Frances was one of the students in the class, and we met several times for the class, do indoor, outdoor type thing, like indoor lecture, outdoor, on hands or hands-on. It's been kind of cool. Whether I'm a mentor or not, she's kind of reached out to me for some help since then, and it's just nice to kind of keep in contact, and I love helping out.
My favorite
part
of the whole class.
Awesome, fantastic. I love to hear that. But it is great to be able to build relationships, and me being that outward type person, that's one of the things I absolutely love most about photography is building relationships with other people, whether it's my clients or whether it's other photographers. And so thank you so much for coming on today to do this.
Absolutely.
Yes. I really do appreciate it.
Helped me out so much.
Yeah. So I could probably sit here and try to introduce Frances as much as possible, but it's going to be better if you do it yourself. So it's yours.
So hi, I'm Frances Schneider, a photographer. And like Jason said, I've been
I think since 2020.
Since 2020, been doing photography. Still fairly newish. I took a lot of classes, and so I'm still trying to get my foot in the door. So still fairly new. Hanging in there.
Okay. So this isn't a question that I've asked. So if it's on the spot for you, what brought you to take classes?
Actually, it's a funny thing. My husband's military, so we moved here about 5 years ago? Almost 5 years ago. And so, and I was a stay-at-home mom, so I stayed home with the kids, and then I got a new camera, and because I love
every parent does,
yeah,
right?
So I love taking photos, and I got a new camera, and I realized I had no idea how to use it, and I was doing it all wrong, and so I found a class online that said introductory, or getting to know your camera, basically. And I was like, oh, that'll be perfect because I need to know what all these dials do. And so I took that class, and it just, from there, just kind of like, oh, this is so cool. And I fell in love with photography. That I've always loved photography, but that just made it solidify that this is awesome. I really loved the creativity and everything of it. And so I just took more and more classes just to,
Cool.
That's how it started.
Well, very good, very good. All right, so now I'm going to ask you questions that you actually know the answers to already. All right, so let's see here. All right, so everybody who listens to me, everybody who's followed my social media, they know that I'm a portrait photographer, and I shoot primarily with high school students and dance and model work. So where do you specialize when it comes to your photography?
Well, I specialize in, I usually say intimate portraits, boudoir. I always say intimate portraits because when you say boudoir, usually they think like, oh, Victoria's Secret, I gotta be naked. So I say intimate portraits just because it is an intimate thing, boudoir, but it's not, You don't have to be all, it's whatever the client feels comfortable doing. So that's what my specialty is, and that's what I'm learning to do and going into. And
yeah, there is definitely a thing with boudoir, and so there's all kinds of ranges. And I've actually I don't know why I've never heard that intimate portraits. I actually like that because I think that they very much are, but that also probably limits a little bit of what you're able to do as far as marketing your work, because you can't necessarily put all of your work out there for clients' privacy.
Yeah, it is hard just because there are a few clients who are just like, no, I'm not comfortable with that, which is fine. So I respect their wishes, and that's totally fine. And that's why usually majority of the time, when it's other people see, they're like, oh, but those models. And yeah, they work with models because the model release and you can release the photos. But I mean, it is a little hard to market and get out there, but it's so worth it in the end, just for that client to feel the way they do, it's worth it.
Awesome. What are 2 to 3 challenges that you personally have faced over the last several years? And I think I know some, but what are some of those?
I think it's just trying to balance, for me anyways, just trying to balance it all. Like right when I started, my oldest was getting ready to graduate high school. So he was going off to college. So we had that. And then right after that, my husband retired from the military. And so we had, that, and our youngest started and, college. And so it was a lot of things back to back. I think it was trying to, for me, because everything was so new, trying to balance everything. And so just the challenges of getting it all balanced and
like that life
balance.
Yeah,
just the life and photography balance, just because, I was the stay-at-home mom. I did that, and that was my focus. And then I jumped to photography and decided, okay, this is what I want to do, to focus on that. But then, the little pull back and forth. But I think, it's a balance. So.
What about finding clients?
Oh yeah, that first, now it's a little bit easier, but at first it was very challenging just because of the nature of your niche. If you want to go into, not as easy as, if you wanted to do high school seniors or something, you got a pool to, pull those clients from. Boudoir is a little, like I said, more intimate, and so not a lot of people want to do it. They're just like, whoa, which I totally understand, because I've had my own boudoir session, and I get that nervousness, and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't,
Yeah.
So I totally understand, but so it's a lot to overcome, but then it gets easier as you start more and more, and word of mouth, and so.
Yeah, I know that I kind of preach finding a group that you can practice with. And for me, when I was learning portrait photography, I had my daughter and her cousins, nieces. Yeah. You can't practice that type of photography with family like that. Yeah. And even a lot of times friends, I think, might be uncomfortable to do that. So that's got to be a challenge.
I do have one person, which I have to say is my sister, who basically, like, I always like, I have an idea for this. She's like, okay. So she's like, all right, fine, just buy me sushi. So, because her husband's allergic to shellfish, so she's like, sushi, and I'm like, okay. So she's my go-to. She's, when I'm like, I have this idea, or I want to do this or that, and I'm like, so she's kind of my go-to person for all that. Although it is, the first time we did do it, it was kind of funny because she couldn't stop laughing.
Which that doesn't work for boudoir.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, you can't laugh that much.
Yeah, but, you don't see a lot of those smiles and jovialness in an intimate portrait.
Yes, right. Yeah. So, but now it's gotten easier, and she's, finding the models, like, hey, I am going to need the model for this because I need, and they're, you know, they model, so it's a lot easier.
You know, you didn't actually mention it, but, and I'm not saying that this is an excuse of yours, but you really did kick off like right in the middle of COVID. And so just having people, one, that would be willing to do it, but also willing to go to your studio, which is also an intimate location, I think that might make people a little bit nervous, or made people a little bit nervous?
That was hard. Because like you said, COVID hit. I think that changed so much, changed a lot of things. But it was hard because I did really want a studio place. But then, you know, COVID and everything, and that had to be on the back burner. When my sons went off to college, I had extra spare bedroom. And so that's what I did. I just basically transformed, you know, our extra bedroom into my studio. That's where everything is. And I moved my office upstairs and everything. And so, but I found out it is hard because it is in my home. You know, my studio is in my home. And so that's what I always have to start off with clients is my studio is in my home, you know, because, you know, sometimes, you know, they can be leery about those things, you know, and it is, you know, especially COVID and everything like that. So it's like, you know, you have to, it presents another challenge.
Sure. Awesome. Let's see here. So I know, again, not that we're like the best of friends and we share everything, but I do know some of your struggles, your challenges over the years. Do you feel any kind of discouragement, or, you know, how are you feeling about your photography business?
Right now, just trying to focus and get everything off the ground. But yeah, definitely struggles. I mean, I think every photographer has felt that in one way or another. Just trying to especially compare, when you first start, you compare yourself to other photographers and you're like, whoa, you know, oh my God, you know, I want to be Jason when I grow up. But no, I mean, I think every photographer feels that. And I think the more you do it, the more you learn. You're just like, no, you know, I'm doing my own thing. They have their own thing. So it's a lot of challenging. My journey is still I need to nail lighting. For me, I think that's key in photography in general is lighting. So I'm still trying to nail that lighting down. But yeah, the challenges are.
Yeah, it definitely is. In comparison, you know, I've had a video about it, but I could literally probably do a 10-part podcast on why comparison is horrible for us as photographers. I mean, for anybody in general, but it can really kill you personally. Even beyond, it can start to fester and get beyond the photography side of it when you get into that comparison stuff. And I deal with that all the time, internally. I seriously do. And, you know, even now, you know, when I see that my work is good, I still struggle sometimes with that internal thought on it.
That little doubt.
You know, and it just kind of festers. And, you know, a lot of times it's if I can't sleep at night, then boom, all of a sudden I got this little, you know, the little red devil on my shoulder just talking to me. And it's like, dude, for real, stop.
Yeah.
You know?
I have that, but it's called my husband yelling at me. Stop it. You're fine. So yeah, it is hard. I mean, you do have that doubt that goes in and you're just like, oh man, you start to doubt everything. And then you're just like, okay, you got to snap out of it. This is, you know, just do you know, and that, I think that's.
Yeah. I think that comparison is the easiest way to put yourself into a funk, no matter what it is that you do. It's probably the easiest pitfall to get into.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
For me, this is next question. For me, first of all, I hate the business side of photography. Altogether, I hate the business side of photography. So I'm not fully going into the business side of it, but like photography in general is much more difficult than what I realized when I started. What's like one or two things that you find more difficult than what you maybe envisioned when you first kind of were getting into this?
Kind of like what you said, honestly, the business side of it, just because, you just want to go and take pictures. You just want to go and do that. And then you realize, oh, wow, there's a whole other, like, especially when you're like, I'm going to do this for business. This is what I want to do. Then you have to learn all that side. And like I said, I've taken classes on that and it's been phenomenal, but it's just so much. You're like, wow, so much that you didn't think of. Like, you're like, oh, wow, okay, I got to deal with like an LLC, or I got to do, taxes, and how is this all going to work out? And it kind of gets a little overwhelming at first when you were like, whoa, I can't just take pictures and call it good.
Yeah, that's why I hate the business side of it. I just want to shoot.
Right, so I'm just like, okay, so hopefully we'll get enough, like, have somebody handle that side. Yeah, because it does get overwhelming, especially when it's you by yourself doing it and you're like, whoa, like, it does get overwhelming. So that's a whole other challenge that you gotta overcome.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if I could not, and I say it all the time, and I really don't say it flippantly. If I could do this at the level at which I do it and not charge, I would. Yeah. Because having to deal with the whole money side of things, to me, it just sucks. Yeah. It sucks the fun out of it. And that's actually one of the reasons why I collab probably as much as I do, because I really just want to shoot. Now, a lot of it now is for YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah. But when I don't have to have any money involved, that's the best time to shoot, to me. But I mean, the money is nice because I like to buy new things.
Yeah, right. Photography ain't cheap.
No,
but no, I mean, if I can just shoot, if that's all I can do and not worry about the other side, that would be phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But that's not, that's not always the case. And so,
my brother said, when I had him on, he said, like, one of the things that I said, what is one of the things that you didn't fully realize? And he was like, how expensive photography can be. And I mean, it really is. And unless you're actually bringing in money, then it can really be a money hole.
Oh yeah. It's, cause you see, I mean, you're just like, oh, that new lens and it's this much. And you're like, oh, but do I really need that lens? And there's a lot of toys that you want to play with. But it is expensive, and that's another thing that you realize going into photography, that you're like, whoa, like I did not know it was going to be this, because one lens is like so much, and you're like, whoa, really? Like, okay.
It can be a discourager, I think, looking at it, especially again, if you're going in and you got like budget friendly gear. Yeah. And then you kind of start to outgrow some of that, and you're like, dude, this lens is $3,000, man. I mean, or even a $2,000. I mean, that's a lot of money. Yeah. It's just like, and then lights and everything else. It's its own thing altogether.
Yeah, that's what I was like. There's a budget.
Yeah, it's like, why do people even get into this? Right. Not to make money. That's the funny thing is people are like, dude, you're doing so well with photography. You got to be doing well financially with it. And I'm like, dude, there's a lot that goes into this.
I mean, I think that's what people don't understand, because it's just like, well, especially like for the boudoir side, it's just like you got hair and makeup, that you got to pay a hair and makeup person to come and do their hair and makeup. Mm-hmm. And you have, all these other things, expenses that people don't realize that you have. And so they're just like, oh, well, it costs this much. I'm like, yeah, because this costs this much,
Mm-hmm. Do you put the hair and makeup into their price?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured you did, but I just wanted to ask. Let's see here. So I recently did a video where I talked about like the 5 things that I wish I knew when I first started. Mm-hmm. One that eluded me was like the exposure triangle. Like for years, I didn't even know the term. And so it took me forever. And I don't want you to restate that, but what are like 2 to 3 things that you could like, if you could level up today a skill set, what would they be?
I think for me, my 3 things, lighting definitely, posing, because I think posing is, especially what I do, is key to everything. I think right now what I'm mainly struggling with, not a huge struggle, but I'm trying to get there, is because I just know the basics, is Photoshop.
Okay.
I think just editing in general, those are my 3 things that I'm just, because I mean, I can edit, I can do that stuff, it's simple, but, composites and all that stuff is way beyond me. I mean, I'm just like, woo,
Just plug in the AI features,
right?
and make them in a castle.
I know the AI, that's a whole other, I don't know. I haven't used AI, I haven't used it just because I want to learn to do it, that way I know how to do it, and I don't want to just rely on, okay, click, like however it works, because I mean, I just learned frequency separation. I just learned that. So I was like really happy with myself because I learned that. But yeah, those are the 3 things. I think if I can nail down the lighting and the posing.
Yeah. So real quick, sidebar on that. When you were getting into photography, did you even once think about posing?
No.
Nobody does.
To me, it's not like I said, when you get into it, you don't realize like, oh man, it's not until you're actually doing it that you're like, whoa, okay. I never thought about that. Like the posing, and I'm like, oh yeah. 'Cause you just think, oh, okay, they'll just pose,
Yeah. They'll just stand there.
And
I'm just going to take the picture.
Right. It's my job to make them look good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's, that's one thing I didn't get. And especially with what I do with boudoir, posing is so key. I mean, you got to nail that down to make the client look good and feel great. Right. And,
Yeah, especially I think with that, because working with a model, working with a high school student, it's vulnerable in front of the camera. But when you put somebody in a lingerie or an intimate clothing in an intimate setting, maybe the whole reason that they are doing the session is to maybe get some confidence or something like that. And posing has got to be critical because, I mean, you're there to make them look good. Yeah. And so posing is its own art form, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Models who model, to me, they're very creative and very artistic in their own right. You're basically like a director also when you're posing people. And it is definitely something that I would bet nobody thinks about when they're getting into photography.
Oh, no. I mean, I know I didn't. That was one of the things I was like, oh, wow, okay, I got to learn posing. And so you do. And like you said, yeah, models are very easy to work with because they do. I mean, that's what they do. And it's amazing because there's not a lot of directions that you got to give them, or if you tell them something, they just boom. With clients, it is a little bit harder because at first it is intimidating. Like those first 5 to 10 minutes into the shoot, they're just like so nervous, which I get. Like I said, I've done my own boudoir shoot, and I get it because I was nervous. So I get it. But then after a while, you have to have a little music playing and, a glass of wine, some mimosas and just, to feel good and confident. But I always if I'm telling, okay, pose this way, I don't just say it. I'm like, okay, this is how I want you to pose. And I'll get into the pose myself just to show them, okay, like this.
I do that too, but people make fun of me. I'm glad I'm not doing boudoir.
Right, that'd be funny.
Good at all.
Yeah, so I think it's just a visual to help them see like, oh, okay, So yeah, it's challenging, but at the end of the day, as long as they feel great, that's all that matters. I think I didn't really realize how key posing was until I actually went when I found out about Texas school. And so in Dallas. And so I went and I took the boudoir class. It's for an entire week with an instructor, a boudoir instructor. And she was like posing. And I'm like, wow, because it does change, like it can change the look of a photo instantly.
It'll make it or break it.
Yep.
Yeah. I that is probably one of my biggest soapboxes is posing. Like it's almost more important than photography.
Yeah.
Like I could actually, if I had somebody who can pose well, I can shoot them with this and I don't need that, the camera gear. But posing is critical. I mean, it took me forever. It took me actually working with people who actually could pose to figure out how to pose people. One dream type session for you, because I know we're pushing time.
Yeah, a dream type. Like for me wanting to shoot or for a client?
Yeah, like if you could shoot anything, anywhere, whatever. This is just a dream big.
Oh, God. I don't know. I go back and forth. But because I love the beach and those kind of outdoor, like if I can go out and shoot, the beach or like in Ireland, like that's one of my, that is one of my goals is to go visit there. Like I need to go, that's my top place to go see. I'm like in a castle and, that would be my dream scenario, like, the flowy dress and the castle, and that would be my dream shoot.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Ireland, flowy castle, or not flowy castle, flowy dress in a castle.
There you go. Yep.
Let's see. I'm going to skip one because we're running on time. And so I'm going to give you your last question. You ready? Well, you've been fantastic.
Okay.
How do you feel?
Good.
That's not the last question. All right. So you've been at this for a couple years, but you still kind of say that you're still newish in your journey, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of one piece of advice maybe outside of posing, because we've talked about that already, but one piece of advice that you might give somebody who's kind of almost or also in that same stage?
Oh, one piece of advice. There's a few, but I think mainly is ask for help.
Man, that's a great piece of advice.
Just because I know it's hard with photographers, because there's some that keep things to themselves. But there is a lot of photographers out there. And I've been lucky enough to where if I need help with something, like Jason here, he's helped me with my lighting and everything. So I know there is help out there. There's avenues and there's places out there just to ask for help. And I know I struggled with that at first because I'm like, I don't want to ask for help, but I could figure this out. But there's only so much, YouTube and all that stuff is awesome, but when you're trying to figure out like editing and all this other stuff, they don't talk back to you. So you can I have this question, so it's like, go ask for help. So you have that one-on-one, find your local guild or whatever it is that's there. And I think that's key.
I think that's fantastic. I love that. I don't know why, but that's not the advice that I was assuming that I was going to get, or your thing. But no, that's extremely important. And I think in this day and age of photography, granted, I didn't grow up in photography either. I would bet that if you ask Jim's a photography mentor to both of us. If he had a mentor, I would bet you he says yes, and he probably says he had multiple. But I don't think a lot of photographers today actually do that. And I think it's important to actually have photographers that you can reach out to and ask and bounce those ideas off of. One, you should never be the best one in the room, right? There's always going to be somebody that's better than you. And I think it's important that you put yourself with people who are better than you. That allows you to grow as a photographer, but that also allows you to bounce those ideas off and, hey, what did you do in this circumstance? Or, business wise, I'm struggling here. What would you offer? And I think it's important.
I really do, because the mentorship, like I said, I've had a lot, and like Jim is one of them, you, and even at that, just friends that are photographers, you're like talking back and forth, and you learn so much just talking and being there, just because, I have met some photographers that are like, but we all know those kind, but there are some that are willing to help, and it's not like I'm the best photographer here, because photography to me is a never-ending learning thing, because there's always something new. Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh, I got to learn this, or you're like, oh, hey, I never thought about it that way. So, or posing that way, or this, or so it's always good to have that surrounding and be around those people that just have the creativity just to keep,
Yeah. One thing I would recommend is to you, but to anybody, granted, it's probably difficult to do more of an intimate type setting, but group meetups for photographers, I think, are really cool. They're nice, creative energies that are flowing, but I think more so than that is where you build those bonds with other photographers, because you can kind of get out there. And I tend to lean to photographers that shoot very similar to me in styles, not necessarily the same clientele, but the same styles. And so when I've gone to a couple of meetups, I kind of start to lean towards those, and those have become photography friends to me. Maybe not necessarily mentors, as you were saying, but friends, to where I can reach out to them, and maybe I look to see what they're doing, or vice versa, they look to see what I'm doing. But I think stuff like that is really critical in the photography world, especially for those intermediate photographers. They give you a really neat outlook on photography in general. And again, you're going to be able to find those different levels to where you can find some that are really good and some that are maybe at the same spot as you. So photography meetups, they probably don't do those for boudoir stuff, but maybe they do. Yeah. I don't know.
Not very much, but I know there's a few friends that do boudoir, so we do talk and like, hey, you want to come over and take pictures of each other, and like,
that's cool.
Do kind of thing, learn this posing or learn lighting and stuff. I think it's key, because I think first starting out, at least I know from my point of view, you kind of like, you don't like, you think you're the only one struggling with that, and you're not. Yeah. When you're first into photography, you just got to realize somebody's already struggled with that. Mm-hmm. And so just reach out for help. And
yeah, I agree.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of my favorite things that I'm able to actually do with this podcast, is I've been able to have episodes where I kind of talk about that kind of stuff that photographers, a lot of times, people in general don't talk about, is that the mental side of this thing, and you're exactly right. Everybody or people have already struggled in it. And it is nice to see people open up and talk and discuss it. I'm not trying to get all touchy-feely or whatever, but I think it's important. And that's actually one of the reasons why I created the podcast in the first place, is because I was looking for photography podcasts that probably were having similar issues to me. But every podcast that I listened to, it was all prim and polished and proper, and you join this and you can become this kind of photographer, or not that they were doting on themselves or bragging, but dude, I want to be real. And I feel like that's my bread and butter, is to be me and to be real and not to try to fool anybody. I don't have it made. I don't know anything and everything. And I struggle daily with certain things. And that to me needs to be shared in the photography world.
Oh, definitely. Because because it's easy to look at somebody's work or look at them and be like, oh my God, they got it all together and they've never struggled. But it's easy to look on the outside, but in the inside, it's just like, yeah, they did struggle. They did struggle with this. They struggled with that. Everybody that is barely learning, because I know I still struggle with things that I'm just like, oh my God. And I do let that doubt seep in sometimes. And I'm like, okay, but I know I'm not the only one. There's other photographers who do that. And that's what starting out, I think is very important for them to realize, like, you're not the only one. Like, there's other photographers who struggle too. You just got to reach out and ask.
And hopefully you ask the right ones, because
Yes.
sometimes there are those that don't want to share and they hold it. That's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
But yeah, I get that. So we probably went a little bit long on this, but that's all right. See, conversations back and forth. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you again so much for your time coming out. I really do value your friendship. I think it's awesome to be able to. I always get excited anyway when I see Frances on my calendar pop up. So it's awesome.
I love you. I love your work. You're awesome. You're just an awesome person. So.
Well, I appreciate it. I think the same of you, and continue to do your thing and grow your thing. Don't get discouraged. Just keep shooting. Like I say at the end of all my videos.
Just do it.
Just do it. Like Nike says. But again, thanks for everybody who's checking out the podcast, and for everybody who is following me on my YouTube channel. Anywhere on my social media, is there a place that we probably can't see your work too much, can we?
No, my website is just getting all together.
Okay.
So I'm trying to pick out pictures to put on the website and everything. So right now I don't really have that right now. So but
if you get
it's
one, let
working.
me know, and I'll end
I
up putting
will.
it in the show notes later.
I will.
Okay. So thanks again for the support. Everybody who watches, I really do appreciate it. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on all the videos, the podcast as well. Hopefully, I should be getting this thing hosted somewhere else other than just YouTube, but at the moment, it's just YouTube right now. Remember, I'm putting out new podcasts every Tuesday, new videos every Wednesday, and until that next one, keep shooting.
Yep.